Hello and welcome to another episode of Go Ballistic here on the Scottish Sun's YouTube channel where, Roger, we are very much at the business end of the season. Titles being decided, relegations, and we now know who's going to be playing in this year's Scottish Cup final. We'll start with yesterday's game at Hampden. Celtic absolutely blowing St Johnstone away, making easy work of it. Convincing showing. What do you make of it yesterday?
Yeah, I was there, Jonathan, and Celtic's big players turned up. You know, they had a sticky half hour. St Johnstone really well disciplined defensively, but I think once Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor and Daizen Maeda took hold of the game, you know, that 4-goal blitz in 11 minutes before half time, it really could have been anything Celtic wanted. I did think St Johnstone were better in the second half. Jota got one. Celtic probably should have scored more, but they've done the job. They're in the cup final, as you say, against Aberdeen, a good cup final, and they can win the league at Tannadice with a point on Saturday.
Absolutely, big few weeks ahead. And you mentioned there Celtic's big players got going, that kind of changed the game. As well as being the business end of the season, that also means it's time for the voting to come in. We had the Premiership Team of the Year from the PFA out at the weekend. The individual awards will be decided in due course as well. We've spoken a few times in here about Daizen Maeda, obviously the clear front runner, the Player of the Year. Is that very much your thinking as it stands just now as well?
Very much, and I have to say, normally you see the PFA Scotland Team of the Year, and you know yourself, Jonathan, footballers don't know as much about football as the football writers do. So normally we put more stock in the Football Writers Award, but for once I thought the players had probably called it right. 7 Celtic players in the side, it's fair enough. Good seasons for Sam Dalby, for James Penrice, you know, guys like that making it into the team, probably, you know, justifiably. Nico Raskin and John Souttar get in as well. But for me, and I know McGregor's played well, I know, you know, Nicholas Cooney had a great first half of the season, but 33 goals for Daizen Maeda, not always at centre forward. He was back in the left wing yesterday. It has to be him.
I just wonder, maybe, you mentioned McGregor there again, is there a bigger case that he should be getting more love as far as this award goes? Because, you know, when he's not played, it's been very different from Celtic. They've struggled in that area of the park. You know, yesterday he got the opening goal as well. It was him that got the assist for Maeda's goal. You know, when he doesn't play, you notice he doesn't play. So is it maybe being a bit underappreciated? I think he's got to be a huge contender for this award this year still.
He's got 10 goals as well, really, from that number 6 position, if you like. And you know, Brendan Rodgers spoke glowingly about him again after the game yesterday. He will be a contender. He will get votes. But I just think Maeda's had such an explosive season this year. He could reach, you know, there's, 6 games left? He could hit 40 goals.
Easily, yeah.
And if it, you know, even if he doesn't hit, for even if he's high 30s, I just think he's head and shoulders above the rest.
He's also just 1 goal off what was Kyogo's most prolific season for Celtic as well, which is quite staggering. Obviously, at the time Kyogo leaving, people from a Celtic persuasion worried that you know, it might be a gaping hole, obviously, he'd leave, but certainly not the case. Now, just one last bit in Celtic, it's a player we talk about quite a lot in here, that's Greg Taylor. You know, every time we've spoken about him, it's just been a case of he's gone, he's leaving, that's it. Doesn't seem quite as clear-cut now. He's managed to fight his way back into that team. Brendan Rodgers still talking as if he wants to keep him. Do you see any kind of U-turn here? Could Greg Taylor still be a Celtic player next season?
I don't think so. I think Kieran Tierney's coming back. Greg Taylor will become second choice. He's never really been second choice in his Celtic career. He's always been the first pick at left back. And I just think the timing is right for Greg Taylor to move on and try something else in his career and in his life. They just added to their young family there. And I can see Greg Taylor moving away from Celtic, maybe down south, maybe to the MLS, maybe to Europe. He's had a great Celtic career. He's been a good signing for Celtic at £2 million from Kilmarnock. He's won a lot of trophies. He's played well. He's scored in big games as well. I just see him moving on, Jonathan.
Well, we'll be hoping to add another couple of trophies, obviously, in the next few weeks before he moves on, if that is indeed to be. Obviously, you mentioned the Scottish Cup final. It's going to be Celtic-Aberdeen. Proper cup tie in Saturday, Aberdeen Hearts. One of those games that had a bit of everything. Last-minute winner as well. Now, obviously, Hearts, Neil Critchley, very unhappy with the referee in particular, John Beaton. Wasn't particularly happy with either sending off. Obviously, both of them having a big effect on how the game went. I personally think the referee called them both right. I can kind of see from the Devlin one, maybe, you know, he is taking a swing for the ball, but he misses it, he kicks the player. I'd be surprised not to see a yellow card for that in this day and age. What did you make of those incidents?
No, let's clear it up. Neil Critchley's wrong and John Beaton's correct. When Steinwender brought down Keskin in, there wasn't another Hearts player going to catch him.
Clean
so
through.
It's a goal scoring opportunity. It's a red card. The VAR backed up John Beaton. The second, when Cammy Devlin's in a booking, Povara's got the ball first. He's kicked him. It's a booking. He's off. John Beaton's called it correctly. If John Beaton doesn't make those decisions, he's under scrutiny from his bosses, from Willie Collum at the SFA. He's called it right. Now, Neil Critchley is in a position where he can come in after a defeat and blame the ref. Deflection, classic deflection tactic. John Beaton doesn't get the opportunity to come in and question Neil Critchley's substitutions or his tactics. Now, they were always going to put on a centre half at half time after Steinmender was sent off, but he took off two of his strikers and put on two centre halves. His next substitution was a third defender.
Yep.
Only one team wanted to win that game, and one team did win it.
What do you think this leaves Critchley in general? You know, a couple of weeks ago we were talking about the pressure that he was under. Obviously, the failure to get into the top six, massive. Failed to get the Scottish Cup final. Obviously, only two teams can get there out of so many. You know that, but that was kind of what their season was almost hanging on now after failing to get into that top six. Where do you think this leaves Critchley? How big is the pressure on him right now?
I think he's under pressure. The reason I think he's under pressure is obviously to miss the top six, and you wonder about that statement from the chief executive Andrew McKinley last week. Hearts were trying to build up to a semi-final, a huge game. The manager was trying to inject a bit of positivity into things, and the chief exec puts out a statement, a grovelling apology to supporters. So that shows you that the hierarchy at Tynecastle are scrutinising the manager. So far, he's taken 1 point from 9 against Hibs. That's a big thing in Edinburgh. He's failed to beat Petrocube, who at the time were the worst team in the Conference League, when a home win would have taken Hearts into knockout stage European football. He's failed to make the top six. He had 2 cracks at it, home to Dundee United, away to Motherwell, failed to score a goal in the 2 games, and now he's lost a Scottish Cup semi-final. He hasn't won a big game since he's been there. They're in the bottom 6. They've got 5 meaningless games ahead, and the chief exec is apologising to the supporters. That's what makes me think he's under pressure.
One to watch indeed, but obviously it was Aberdeen that got the win. The way to win a semi-final, I suppose, the last minute winner. Fans absolutely loving that. They were at Hampden. We've talked about, again in here, about how strange this season's been from Aberdeen. The highs of the highs to start the season. That sort of strange period in between where they couldn't buy a win. Now they're going to end up a cup final appearance. Do you think they'll be fancying their chances going in against Celtic? Do you think they'll fancy their chances of getting a bit of silverware?
It's a huge ask. The last time they went to Hampden to play Celtic, they lost 6-0. They lost 5 at Celtic Park recently, so it's a huge ask. But big picture, if Jimmy Tillin can take Aberdeen into Europe, then a cup final, European qualification, that's what a first season should be about. You know, we were talking about Neil Critchley's first season there. Tillin, like David Gray, has done a really good job. He's going to take him to Europe. The fact that Celtic and Aberdeen meet in the final means that 5th place will now guarantee European qualification as well. So there'll be a fight for 3rd. Aberdeen are still in the fight for 3rd. They've got Hibs at home on Saturday, which is going to be huge in the race for 3rd place. I think Jimmy Tillin in the Aberdeen hierarchy will be happy with his first season. Definitely
the way it's turned out. Now, a club that will be looking for a reset as well next season is going to be Rangers. Obviously not in action this weekend, no silverware coming this season. We know for sure, obviously, after the European campaign ended yesterday. Andy Devlin with the story last night that the takeover's edging that wee bit closer than coming American owners have that 50% shareholding ready to go for when this gets complete. So what's left for Rangers this season? Is it just going to be a case of the petering out? What are the players playing for? What's Barry Ferguson playing for?
I think everyone at Rangers would have been quite happy if the season ended in Bilbao on Thursday night. They're left with 5 meaningless games. The 49ers takeover will take place. I think this is the last parts of due diligence taking place just now. I expect it to be announced in May. And then the new owners have the task of deciding who they want for manager. Is it Barry Ferguson? Is it someone else? Deciding who they want as a sporting director if they bring that in. And then changing the football department personnel, because there's guys out of contract like Tom Lawrence, like Liam Balogun, Yanis Hadji. There are loan players who will go back to their parent clubs as well. They'll need to make a decision on Oscar Cortes. Are they obliged to put that deal together? Will other players leave the football club, guys who have been in the fringes this year? And how many players do they bring in, and how big is the budget? So these are the big things for Rangers in the coming weeks and months. The 5 games they face, Jonathan, with the probable exception of an Old Firm game, which lives in its own little bubble. the rest of the games are meaningless.
Absolutely. Now, where there certainly aren't meaningless games, certainly looking ahead the next couple of weeks is at the top of the Championship. Because Falkirk stuttering a wee bit. Livingston probably wouldn't have expected to be where they are 2 games to go. They're still very much, in the running for this. Falkirk being on top for majority of the season. Do you still fancy them to get it over the line? It's still a big challenge for Livingston from where they are, but quite quickly they both play Hamilton, they both play Partick in this season. And how do you see this going?
The goal difference, it could come down to goal difference. The Falkirk's goal difference is significantly better than Livingston's. Falkirk playing next to go to Firhill to play Partick on Friday night, and Partick need the win because Wraith Rovers win at Falkirk at the weekend has put pressure on Partick to get that last promotion playoff place. So Partick's need is just as big as Falkirk's need. There will be nerves, there will be tension, there will be anxiety. It'll be a great game. And if there's another slip up by Falkirk, Livingston then go to Hamilton at the weekend. Hamilton have their own issues at the minute, of course, which I think we'll touch upon. But it's remarkable that when it looked as if it was just going to be a parade to the title again for Falkirk, there is a little bit of anxiety. Yeah,
intriguing stuff. And as you mentioned, we will touch on Hamilton. What a difference a few days can make in football. This time last week, Hamilton, looking over their shoulder, but probably not thinking about doomsday or anything like that. Certainly the fans' point of view. Fast forward a week, they're relegated, obviously pending an appeal. What have you made with everything that's been going on the past week there?
According to John Rankin, I was there on Saturday, Jonathan. I spoke to John Rankin. The current table, if you look at it in the Scottish Sun, tells you Hamilton are 7 points behind Airdrie with 2 games to go. They're down. John Rankin says he's still looking at the table before the 15-point penalty. An appeal will go into Hampden tomorrow. We believe the table will revert to the way it was before the punishment. That would put Airdrie bottom, it would put Queen's Park second bottom, Hamilton would go to 7th. But how quickly can the appeal take place? What will the appeal throw up? Because at the minute, there are doubts about the future for Hamilton, for Queen's Park, for Dunfermline, for Airdrie, and for the teams behind Arbroath at the top of League One who are going into these playoffs. Who plays who, and when will they play the games?
Well, there's just not time to sort all that out, is there? Because the playoffs are only, a couple of weeks away from getting started.
I think the SFA are trying to fast-track an appeal hearing. How fast-track is, we need to wait and see. But there is the integrity of the competition is at stake here.
For sure. Well, we'll keep a close eye on that. You can stay across all our platforms, get the very latest in that. Roger, you're going to go and catch up with Kris Boyd. While you're going to get ready for that, don't forget there's all sorts of stuff you can watch on our YouTube channel, including the great one-on-one series. Derek McGregor last week went to catch up with the former Hibs and Rangers defender, current number 2 Ayr United, Stephen Whittaker. Here's a little flavour of what you can get from him.
You're in a car from 6:15 in the morning, heading through?
Yeah, we're 6 o'clock through, about 7:30 getting through here.
Wow. That's some journeys.
Well, I used to stay with him at Fleetwood, so that's actually a bit lighter than normal. That's normal.
What was it like as a flatmate? What was how did you work that one?
There was a lot of times we went out for dinner and we never cooked that much. That was probably we did at times, but we ended up being at the training ground because there was obviously families were still up north, so it was hard. You never really had much to go home to, if you like. So we used to stay at the training ground, and after all the work was done, use the gym and just spend our time pretty much all together, and then go back to the apartment, get some dinner, and get up the next day and go again. So it was tough, a lot of hard work. A lot of people don't see that side of being a coach and potentially having to work away for family and things. That's a tough part of it.
Well, we can now head for London on Easter Monday. Kris Boyd is there on Sky Sports duty. You've got Scottish Sun Go Ballistic duty first. Boyd, we'll look back on the Scottish Cup semi-final weekend. What did you make of yesterday, first of all? St Johnstone 0, Celtic 5. St Johnstone just really made them angry by beating them in the league a couple of weeks ago.
I actually said that at the time. You wouldn't be surprised if Celtic took the frustration out of St Johnstone in the semi-final, the exact same as what they'd done to Aberdeen. If you go back when they came to Celtic Park and drew with them, and then they played them in the League Cup semi-final, wasn't it? So absolutely battered them. And I think when you look at Celtic the way they played yesterday, you could tell that since that defeat in Perth, you look at Kilmarnock, the way they went about their business there. And then, at the weekend there, Brendan Rodgers said it before, we'll say it again, perfectionist, wants everything to be done to a really, really high standard. And he got that again yesterday in abundance. I thought, the first half, it took some time for Celtic to wear St Johnstone down, but then as soon as they got the first, it was just an avalanche of goals before half time. Job done, and on to the final.
2 more goals for Daizen Maeda, 33 for the season. He's one of 7 Celtic players in that PFA Scotland Team of the Year. Any complaints about that lineup, Boyd? I think it was Schmeichel in goal, back 4 Johnson, Carter Vickers, Suter and Penrice, midfield McGregor, Hattati and Raskin, and a front 3 of Kuhn, Dalby and Maeda. Is that fair enough?
I mean, I think if there's Cherny was maybe somebody that could, he would maybe have had a case.
Simon Murray.
Simon Murray is another one. Hibs will look at it from their point of view in terms of the season they've had. But I don't mean not everybody can get in, can they? There's been periods where players have been really good. Take Nicholas Quinn, for example. You go back to up until January, he was unbelievable. And then he's kind of dipped off, tailed off a little bit. His form's dipped, and but you can't forget the impact that he had on Celtic's team at the start of the season. He was unbelievable. So I think we always speak about it, Roger, isn't it? Come the end of the season, you get players that finish the season strong, and everybody speaks about them and the way that they finish, they're scoring goals, and he's up for Player of the Year, he should be the Team of the Year. But I think consistently over a period of time, then it's a pretty fair team for me, to be honest. Yeah.
One who didn't make it, Adam Idah. There was strong words from Brendan Rodgers on Friday about him after that video that appeared last midweek. He got his goal at Hampden yesterday. He missed a chance in the second half at Hampden yesterday. What do you make of the whole thing, and what do you make of Adam Idah's first season as a permanent Celtic signing? Has he done enough?
No, I don't think he has. I think when he came up at first, you're on loan, and your team that have sent you on loan, you need to go and show everyone that if somebody's taking you on loan, that you need to perform for them, because if you don't, then they ain't going to want you. Then you're going to have to go back to a team that obviously didn't want you in the first place when they send you out on loan. So when he came up, we'll wrap the tongue around that eventually there. But I think when he came up to start with, there was a freedom. I thought, he was what Celtic needed at the time. He pushed Kyogo. There was times where, I think it was at Rugby Park. It was unbelievable that night. And that's the levels he can get to. But we've not really seen it a lot this season. Listen, Roger, I've been there myself when I was a striker. If you're not playing regular football, all of a sudden your touch might be off. Your natural instincts to get into positions, you might start hesitating, and it's not as free flowing as it should be. But I think you should still be doing more. There's no doubt about it. You look at the wide players that Celtic have got, the creativity. He should be getting a lot more goals. Plus, he'll get himself in a position. He will ask questions of teams defensively, but I think he should be doing better. Put it this way: is will Celtic? He was given an opportunity when Kyogo left to nail that number 9 jersey or that position on the pitch. Brendan Rodgers went to Maeda a lot more than they probably expected. So I think for me, has he done enough? No. Will Celtic strengthen in that area in the summer? Yes. Where does that leave Adam Idah? I'm not 100% sure because you would have said between Kyogo leaving and the end of the season, that would have been an opportunity for Adam Idah to nail that position, and he hasn't done that.
They will play Aberdeen in the Cup final. Idah, of course, scored the winning goal in the Cup final against Rangers last year. Aberdeen get through against Hearts on Saturday. Do you give Aberdeen a chance in the final, Boydie?
Yeah, no chance.
What about the semi-final, though? Because it was a game marred with controversy. There was a red card for Michael Steinwender just before half-time for that trip on Topi Keskinen. There was then a second red card in extra time for a couple of bookings for Cammy Devlin. Aberdeen finally broke down the 9 men. Odi Abba scoring at the end of added time. Was it a deserved win for Aberdeen? And what about those 2 red card flashpoints?
Well, I think when you look at it, Aberdeen played against 10 men against Rangers for the majority of the game at Pittodrie the week before, struggled to break Rangers down. There were comfortable enough in periods of the game, but you'd expect that to be the case when you've got an extra man. The exact same at Hampden at the weekend. I thought once, yes, and I know Hearts changed their shape and brought on a couple of defenders and tried to more or less hit in the counter attack, sacrificed attacking areas and to shore that up, and it nearly worked. But now the criticism will come from Neil Critchley off the back of it's a semi-final, it's a one-off game, chance to get to a final, and when you go defensively, but I can totally understand it at the weekend. I can, because Shankland has scored. He's not the one who you would expect. In terms of the pace at the top end of the pitch, he's not going to. In terms of a counter attack, but he's the one that if the ball goes up to him, and usually when you're down to 10 men, when it goes up to that forward player, it needs to stick to allow the team to get up, and there's no doubt that he's the best at that. So you can see.
You predicted in your column in the Scottish Sun on Saturday Shankland would make an impact in the semi-final. He did make an impact. He scored that equalising goal. At that stage, he had Wilson and Cabangu up with him. Now, obviously, Neil Critchley was going to put on a centre half at half-time to replace Steinwender. Were you surprised, though, that he took both Wilson and Cabangu off, put on two centre halves, went to a back five, and almost invited Aberdeen to come onto them?
Yeah, but to be honest, I don't think it was the way that Neil Critchley would have thought at half time, I'm going to go and sit in a back five. I think he would have looked at it saying, I'm going to have a back three, and the right and left fullback is pushing on his midfielder to have a four across there, and it allows someone to get in contact with Lawrence Shankland. But it just didn't happen like that. And listen, fair play to Hearts. They dug in there. I mean, I thought over the piece, Forrester was good. Shankland, I thought, done well. Benningham and Devlin in the middle of the pitch. I thought they'd done their job, but ultimately ran out of steam in the end up. For Aberdeen, they kept going, they kept asking questions of Hearts, and managed to find that winner at the end. In terms of the red cards, I have absolutely nothing against John Beaton. I think it's the correct decision, to be honest. I look at the first one, he is the last man, he's been through and goal. What you meant to do, you've got to look at the speed as well. He was going away from Steinwender. He was never catching him. It's a pure time tackle anyway. I don't think the recovering defenders were going to get back. And then the second one, I mean, I can understand why a lot of Hearts fans are angry at John Beaton, but it is a foul. Devlin had another 2 or 3 fouls in the game as well. He has kicked the bottom of his foot. So I mean, because of the first red card, Hearts fans are already on John Beaton's case. But I thought over the piece, John Beaton refereed the semi-final very well and got both decisions right. And I must add, for me, even on Sunday as well, Callum Scott, on that occasion, I thought, people will look at it, the James Forrest one in real time. I thought it was a penalty kick myself, but it was a good intervention for VAR to go back and overturn that as well. Mackenzie Kirk, fantastic strike. It's a pure touch from Adam Idah when it goes up, but there is a little push in the back. Listen, it's one of those ones you don't want to see goals being chopped off. But I mean, was Adam Idah getting on the other side of it as well? I'm not 100% sure. Maybe that one was a little bit dubious, but the second one, the Forest one, was the right call. And for me, I thought the exact same in the other semi-final. John Beaton got both decisions correct.
The fact that as Celtic and Aberdeen in the final, Body Hearts and St Johnstone go out 2 bottom 6 teams, it means the top 5 in the Premiership guaranteed European football. It means that if Aberdeen win the cup, they're guaranteed group stage European football. If they don't win the cup, the team that finishes third, and it might still be Aberdeen, or it might be Hibs, or it might be Dundee United. One of these teams is guaranteed European group stage football. There's an awful lot to play for now in that top 6 after the split.
100%, and I think obviously a few people have been moaning about the split in recent weeks and want to revamp the league and everything. Not for me. I think that what we've got is everything would be. There is still excitement there. They're going to be playing against each other as well. It's not as if you're going to be up against teams in the bottom 6 now, and you're looking at saying, well, they can pick up points there. They're all going to be playing each other, so they're going to have to perform between now and the end of the season, because you'd imagine it's going to go right to the wire. It's a huge game at Pittodrie. come the weekend. If Hibs can go up there and get the victory, then it puts them in I mean, they're already in the driving seat. But for me, I think that would more or less see off Aberdeen if that was the case. But I mean, who would bet against Hibs? I mean, the run they're on, they've shown that they're very well organised. Their structure allows them to counter attack, and that they can cause problems. For me, I think Hibs will get third spot, and I think Celtic will win the Scottish Cup. So, for me, it'll be Hibs that's in the group stage football, and it would be a fantastic achievement for them from where they were, a few months ago.
Absolutely,
incredible turnaround, incredible.
You talk about excitement, boy. The Championship's going to give us a bit more excitement than I think many of us were anticipating. Falkirk lose at home to Wraith. Livy win 5-0 against Ayr United. Freak result on Friday night. Suddenly the pressure's on. Falkirk going to Partick Thistle on Friday night again. Thistle need the points because they only got one against Neil Lennon's Dunfermline. Wraith are only behind them in goal difference. It looks on paper Thistle still to play against Falkirk and Livy. Wraith have to play Morton in Queen's Park. Well, what about Falkirk first of all? Will they hold on?
I think they will. I think you'd expect them to beat Hamilton in the last day. I think they will, and they've got 12 goals better off. I think it is, Roger. Yeah. I think that will be enough for them. It's going to be a difficult game going to Firhill on Friday night, as you say. Livy go to Hamilton. You'd expect Livingston to go there and win, but I mean, even for Thistle going into that game, you just thought it was just a Ayr United and Partick Thistle were guaranteed that they were going to be in that top four, playing against each other, and the playoffs. But it's turned, hasn't it? Wraith Rovers have been. I mean, you'd expect them to beat Morton, but at the same time, if Morton go to Wraith and win, they're only 2 points behind Wraith as well. So there's a lot still to play for. We've got
the mad relegation situation as well. Completely confused by the 15-point penalty for Hamilton. They're appealing. The appeal goes to the SFA when the office is reopened tomorrow. There's going to be a fast track appeal. How fast is fast track? When will we find out? It is peak Scottish football, boy.
Yeah, well, we always knew they never usually work on Easter Monday, do they? So they knew they were going to be off today, that's for sure. Might return to their desks tomorrow, and then fast track. How quick will that be? Probably 3-4 weeks before we hear that. No doubt the season will have finished before there's an outcome. But listen, I think I actually watched John Rankin's interview at the weekend, and I feel sorry for John. I grew up playing with John through the youth with Scotland, and a genuinely good football man. I know he's had his critics at Hamilton, but you could tell he was hurting. You could tell that it was a difficult interview for him, and that's why I watched it, because I wanted to see how he conducted himself. But I thought he did conduct himself really well, spoke really clearly on what he needed to do, and Hamilton need to just go and try and get as many points as they possibly can from the last two games and see what that appeal is. If it gets overturned or whatever, and they will hope that is the case. There'll be a few other ones down there that won't be hoping that they get it overturned. But listen, I think the Championship once again is we always speak about the Premiership and the excitement that it brings, but the Championship has lived up to its expectations again this year. 2 games left. The Championship's not decided. We're not sure who's going to get in the playoffs. Relegation still up for grabs as well. So there's a lot going on down there, and we all thought that Falkirk, it was just a matter of time, wasn't it? It's getting to that stage now where if you go to Firhill on Friday and you don't win, then Livy do win. All of a sudden, that game against Hamilton, as I said, I expect them to win it, but it becomes the fans turn up, the excitement. But I think people need to realise where Falkirk came from. They've been in an unbelievable position all season, but they were a Division 1 team last year. So the job that John McGlynn has done to get them into this position, if they're having a little hiccup right now, then it's not the right time to do it. But you look at Wraith, and Barry Robson's went in there, and I mean, it was a start, but to be honest, I mean, they've picked up recently in the last few weeks, and they've gave themselves every opportunity. A home game against Morton and a what is it, away to Queen's Park. I mean, that's a gimme 3 points right now. So for Wraith, they will fancy their chances of getting in there.
Absolutely. Boyd, I'll let you go. I know you're in London. It's the full championship card
Full
down there.
championship today.
On Monday, Sky Sports. They love getting the expert opinions of one of Scotland's greatest strikers of the 21st century. So please pass on my best to Jamie Mackey.
I will do. Take care.
Cheers, Boyd.
Cheers.